This season preview is brought to you by Manscaped's brand new Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. This luxurious lather cleanses and nourishes in just one step. Using coconut water, green tea, and aloe, this non-greasy daily formula is naturally hydrating and rich in antioxidants to revitalize the look and feel of your hair. So head on over to manscaped.com and use the promo code SACCITY for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. The new Ultra Premium 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner from Manscaped. Take care of hair everywhere.
The Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC East. We've, my Cowboys are in the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles acquired A.J. Brown this offseason. Their offense looks to be revamped. It's the truth of Jalen Hurts. This is the true testament as to what he's going to be as a quarterback. So, A.J., we got to start with the offense, obviously. Who is the X factor on this offense where basically if he's not there, they're not winning? And if he's on and doing his thing, they're winning. Who is that X factor?
And, I know it may seem like the easy route out, but you alluded to it, and I think the answer does have to be.
God, this StreamYard stuff is just, I get it, Vinny. I get it.
Damn, man. See, the worst part is now we can't even make up with the plantation jokes because even you picked the wrong black guy.
I am halfway. Go ahead.
That's fair. You okay? That's fair. I'm going to say it's Jalen Hurts. And I know that might be the low-hanging fruit, and everybody's looking at what Jalen Hurts can do this season. But that's been the talk of the town since last season when Jalen Hurts played quite well and took them to the postseason, but just couldn't do enough to get them over the edge. At this year, they did everything they could to make sure he's set up for success going forward. They went out and got A.J. Brown, like you alluded to. They locked down Jordan Mailata, who's turned out to be one of the best left tackles in the league. Now you can really argue and say that the Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. They went out and got defensive players, so he's situated on that side of the ball. Now you have an offense with a Devontae Smith, an A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert was one of the top tight ends with yards run per route last season. You have an offense that has weapons all over it and will keep defenses guessing because with him and Miles Sanders on the rush game and then all those wideouts in the pass game, he should be set up for success. If he's going out there and he can't get it done, we're seeing accuracy problems. He's dropping below 60% game after game. That's going to be a problem. If he's getting wide open receivers and missing them by yards and they're turning into turnovers, that's going to be a problem. I don't foresee that. I think he is going to take another step forward. I'm hoping and kind of expecting that I will see him over 3,500 yards this season. I think I'll see him back in that 700 rushing yards this season. I'm not going to predict touchdowns for the rushing because I do think if Miles Sanders can stay healthy, they're going to want to give him the ball a little bit more just to keep the defenses guessing and then allow him to step back and run that play action and do some talented things he can with his arm. So, but if he's not on after everything they've done for him, we've alluded to the fact that the Eagles will look to do something with some picks next season. And if they can get themselves a young QB and move on from Jalen Hurts, well, that'll be the second time in 4 or 5 years that they're looking for a new franchise quarterback. So this season, it's all on Jalen Hurts, and I think he has the requisite weapons to do it. It's time to get behind center and step up to the plate.
See, I get that, and I agree. I do think that a lot of this team is what they're capable of is going to be on the shoulders of Jalen Hurts. But there's a big question mark about Jalen Hurts that I constantly kind of battle with myself about. And it's not the talent. Obviously, he's mobile. He can get out of the pocket. He has a good arm. He can see the field. It's the accuracy. And this is something I've always said in the NFL is can a non-accurate quarterback, not only non-accurate in college, but since he's been a quarterback, he hasn't really been known as an accurate quarterback. Can a quarterback improve their accuracy? Is that something you can develop over time? And I'll be honest, the precedents that have kind of been set in the past where most inaccurate quarterbacks, Cam Newton's, they're usually always pretty inaccurate. They never really gain that accuracy or the ability to put the ball in places that they need to put it in. And we're talking about Jalen Hurts. That's the one question mark I have. You go from 52% completion percentage in the few games that he played in 2020. Then he comes back last year, and obviously it improved because 50% is just the worst you could ever have. It improved, but it's still barely over 60%. And that every time I think about, man, Jalen Hurts, I think he has it, that pops up in my head. Can he be accurate with the football enough to get that completion percentage to just acceptable? I mean, I'm not asking for 70% completion percentage like the elite quarterbacks in this league, but can we get it to 65? Can we get it to 66? I'm struggling whether I believe he can actually do it or not. And it's just some of the errant throws. And sometimes it's errant throws based on the fact that he's rolling out of the pocket and there's nobody there. Sometimes it's his receivers not winning and he's got to put the ball in places and maybe his receivers aren't making plays for him. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, you bring in a guy that can go in and make these catches in an A.J. Brown who's big, physical, strong, a guy that's going to go up and make plays. And then you say, okay, now Jalen Hurts has a guy you can throw the ball up to and go make that play. And maybe A.J. Brown is the answer. Maybe A.J. Brown is the guy that's going to come in and change what Jalen Hurts sees on the field when he develops that chemistry with them to trust him a little bit more. And maybe it's that simple. And then something always pulls me back and says, I'm not quite sure if that's all that was the accuracy issues that were concerning me. So that's my only point of caution with Jalen Hurts. Everything else I love. I love the ability. I love the leadership. I love that his teammates believe in him. I worry, is it something that just can't be fixed in an accuracy problem? And therefore, he's always going to be Cam Newton-esque, which went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is always going to have that stigma. You can never take that extra step. You have to do it with your legs in order to be elite, and you can never take that extra step.
To do a little play off of one of my favorite movies, Anchorman, when I look at Jalen Hurts' stats, 50% of the time, he was accurate every time. Last season, he had 8 of his 17 games. He was over 62%, over 63%. I think this year you're going to see that number climb to 10, 11 different games where you can see that. And I think he's going to benefit from the fact that this is the first time since high school that he's having the same play caller and the same offensive scheme. And not only is he familiar with what's going to be going on the field, he now has more weapons. We've been talking about the weapon issue in Philadelphia for the last 4 or 5 years when Carson Wentz had receivers, didn't have a 500-yard receiver one season, barely got a 600-yard receiver the next season. Now you have guys, Devontae Smith coming off 900 plus in his rookie year. A.J. Brown, when he's on the field, we know what he can do. And we've allotted to the weapons over and over again. I don't want to go back to that ad nauseum. But I think he's going to benefit from having the same scheme, having it set up where he can do more of these play-action plays or have the ability to make the right choice because now he's got more space out there. Having a defender following A.J. Brown down there when you're rolling out to the same side, that might give you an extra 10 or 15 yards instead of having to force a throw that you feel a little bit more comfortable rushing out on some of these scrambles that you might not have done before because you just had nowhere to go with the ball. So it's about making the right decision with your legs instead of just always depending on them. And I think he'll have the confidence to do that a little bit more, knowing that he can also be trusted to make the right throws now. They've all put everything into this. I mean, they came out to training camp wearing memorabilia and shirts and hats. It's Hurt season, and everybody was on that train for the first couple weeks of training camp. They're putting a lot into him. They're trusting him. They're playing for him. I don't want to talk about how much pressure he has, but a lot of us know the truth in this situation, and I think he's up to the task.
Yeah, I think the Philly hype machine is not just about Jalen Hurts and that offense acquiring A.J. Brown and maybe some of those weapons, but to the defensive side of the football, and I'm going to say it, I have been probably the most reluctant to buy into the Philadelphia defense. The names are great. We saw what they were able to do in the draft. We saw they go out and get a Jordan Davis. They go and get a Nakobe Dean. We talked about Josh Jobe playing in Alabama, knowing that system and coming from a Power 5 school, and then the addition of a James Bradbury, who's been a pretty good corner in this league. Plus, you still have guys like Fletcher Cox. So Hassan Reddick, not even mention him. So the names on the Philadelphia Eagles defense is there. This defense gives me the vibes of the Los Angeles Chargers defense, and I know I say this all the time, but I'm from the show me state. You have to prove to me that when you have the talent or the names that we say are talented, that you can go out on the field and have that translate to actual success. I, again, worry about that success. And I know it's just been the preseason. I know it's been hard for us to really gauge what the preseason has looked like. But as a team, Philadelphia did not come out in the preseason and really do much to show me like they were ready to go. They got beat up by Miami. They got beat up in another game. Their run defense was terrible against Cleveland. They drove up and down the field on a first-team defense and an offense that looked decent. But again, how are you going to help a Jalen Hurts? How are you going to help an A.J. Brown when your defense doesn't look the same? And I think this defense has to show me. It's still going to take time for them to gel. It's still going to take time to get that cohesive unit together. Do they have the pieces to make it a top 10 defense? Absolutely. But is that going to translate on the field and actually come to fruition? Again, I don't know. And maybe it's just my disbelief. This is not being a Cowboys fan. This is watching what I saw last year, and that defense give up 50, give up 48 to a division rivalry, and then come back this year, go address certain key positions, and then not really show anything in the preseason. It's just been a bunch of names added. I attribute it very much to the Cleveland Browns defense or the Los Angeles Chargers defense. I don't know that I'm going to trust it until I actually see it come week 1, 2, 3, 4, whenever it happens.
I think you're going to be low on their defense for the first couple weeks of the season as they start to gel. But much like last year, this defense and mainly their secondary came on late in the year. I remember, I think it'll come on sooner this year. Let me say that. But like last year, it came to the second half of the schedule where you were seeing guys like Avonte Maddox really step up and end the season with about 9 pass deflections. You know, you got a lockdown in Darius Slay. And then, like you said, you added a lockdown to James Bradbury. I think that is huge because now you're looking at a secondary that you really feel like you can trust. Now you're looking at coverage sacks. Now, if this front end, which normally they do get to the quarterback with guys like Fletcher Cox, they lock down a Josh Sweat. They normally get to the quarterback, but now you're going to have extra time because I thoroughly believe this secondary is going to be locking people down step for step for most of the season. So when you have that, I mean, you know how like in baseball, you draw it out bat and you give teams time. I think you have a defense that you shouldn't do in the NFL, but could do that. Your offense is tired. All right, well, let's make sure we don't give up too much in the run and then, give it about 5 plays and then lock it down, shut it down. You might have a defense that can go in it's like crying on cue. When it's time to turn up, get it done. I believe this. I've been very high on the Philadelphia Eagles, and I understand I should probably temper it a little bit. There's still a lot of young talent on this team on both sides of the ball, but it's time for young talent to show out. This is a new NFL. We're 2 old guys left. You're talking about Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Andrew Whitworth left.
Oh, the disrespect. The disrespect to your own old quarterback, former quarterback, Matt Ryan.
I don't call him old.
He's the same age as Aaron Rodgers.
He's young at heart. He's still a kid. He's still a kid out there. That's why he's free to change teams the way he did. Don't do that. Don't make me hate on Matt Ryan that way.
Listen, I'll say this. I'm going to pull a Vinny here because you're right. Philly's defense came along last year. Matter of fact, that was one of our streaming defenses for the end of fantasy football.
True.
But let's not forget what happened at the end of last season and who they played. Like their last 7 games were the Saints without a quarterback, the Giants, the Jets, the Giants, Washington, and then the Dallas Cowboys the last week of the season, who, by the way, they didn't play any of their starters, I believe, in that game. Yeah. Or we didn't play any of our starters. I don't remember who it was, or they didn't play any of their starters, whichever it was. It was 51-26. So it wasn't good. They scored 41 and 51 in 2 games last year against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. When you go back to the beginning part of last year, they were giving up a ton of points. They dropped 42. The Kansas City dropped 42. The Vegas Raiders dropped 33. Tampa scored 30. Chargers scored 30. Saints, actually, the Saints did score 30 in that game, and the Eagles just scored 40. So I know they came on last year, and I'm comfortable with saying, okay, but Washington football team got the hype last year. This year, it's the Philadelphia Eagles defense that's getting some hype, and I'm just concerned that it doesn't translate on the field. I agree with everything you said, and maybe there's no legitimate logic behind my reasoning as far as saying they can't, because I do believe they can. But
it would be a travesty if this defense shat the bed like the Washington football team did last season. That's still to me one of the biggest question marks of last. I don't like
how can you have that much talent and be that bad and yet they were.
So. That's organizational in my opinion at that point. So
that's true.
And if there's one thing I do feel, the Eagles have a pretty decent organization, or at least they're back to trending in that direction. But I get you. We talked about all offseason. It's easy to talk about the hype in the offseason. But once week 1 starts, that whistle blows and you're on the field, it's a whole different story. You have to show up week in and week out. And they do have to prove it week in and week out. This is not they'll be fine type thing before week 1. We can't say that till damn near week 6, 7. So
So in line with the defense, the offense, we talked about both. What specifically, AJ, are you watching for from the Eagles team this year, whether it's a player or something specific from them as a team in general?
So I spoke about it to your point of the defense, and I'll go more positional. I am looking forward to this secondary. I think they got a hype train there. I couldn't believe that the Giants let James Bradberry go to a divisional opponent of the Eagles, who everyone was already talking about could be the best team in the NFC East, fighting with the Dallas Cowboys. So now you got him. I've always been high on Darius Slay. We just talked a little about Avonte Maddox. I'm looking to see if they can be one of the teams that don't just lock people down, but cause turnovers, put quarterbacks in confusion, make them make mistakes, and capitalize on it. This should be a type of defense that can create turnovers, and I'm looking to see if that's going to come from this secondary. I think it's going to be very exciting, and I won't give away anything, but again, I'm very high on the Philadelphia Eagles and what they can do this season.
You won't give away anything. Look at you teasing. Yeah, last year the Philadelphia Eagles, just kind of to put that a little bit into context, they had 13 interceptions, 12 interceptions last year. Mike, 12 interceptions last year. That was bottom 12 in the NFL. So they weren't creating those turnovers in the secondary, like you mentioned. And you're hoping a James Bradberry can come in and make some more plays. And then you have Darius Slay, obviously, who's one of the better corners in football that we know quarterbacks do not like to go at. But maybe having Bradberry will actually force them to have to go at Slay a little bit more and then create some more of those turnovers for them on the defensive side of the football. So with that, let's get into our odds. Vinny likes to do this gambling game, so I'm going to get into this odds. Where does he have them here? These prop bets here, locked and loaded. Plus money all the way around here. Winning the NFC East are plus 150, 8.5 rushing touchdowns for Hurts plus 120, and then 70 and a half receptions for AJ Brown plus 100. AJ, which one would you lock in as your kind of go-to bet that you think you can make some money on?
I'm gonna go with the 8.5 rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts, and part of that comes from I think he's gonna take some away from what would be a Miles Sanders. They both have home run hit ability. You know, they can both rush the ball from 30 yards out and get to the end zone. And I think some of the scrambles that he's gonna have are gonna turn into that. He had 10 rushing touchdowns last season, so even with a little bit of regression, I think he can get up to 9. And I like some of those other bets, but I worry about AJ Brown being hurt possibly, and then to win the NFC East, I don't know about locking that in. Every year there's a new one, and as good as they are, as good as I believe they are, and they have the shot, I don't know about locking that one in. But so I'll take my guy Jalen Hurts, and I'll say he's going to get over 8.5 rushing touchdowns, and that's heavy.
Yeah, I think this one's tough for me as well. It could be 8.5 rushing touchdowns, but I think with the addition of AJ Brown that there's going to be less opportunities for him to score rushing touchdowns. I think they throw to AJ Brown in the red zone a little bit more. He had 139 carries last year. I don't know that he gets to that number again, and I think that's going to limit some of those rushing upside. I think there's a little bit of touchdown regression there. I think that number is going to be mighty close to 8.5, 9, somewhere in there. I don't know that I would lock that one in. I am, however, going to lock in the receptions for AJ Brown. I actually think that they are going to use AJ Brown a lot, that they are going to try to get him the football. And I know that Devontae Smith maybe fits that role a little bit more as the possession kind of guy that you're going to throw the ball to, and then AJ Brown does those big plays and then break tackles. And AJ Brown's only had 70 catches one time. But a lot of that is tied into health. He's never really played a full season. He only played 13 games last year. I think A.J. Brown gets over 70 catches this year. I'm going to lock in the 70 catches. That might be a risk too, but I think A.J. Brown's primed for a big year. I really do. Let's get into the schedule. The schedule is the thing we were talking about earlier. Who are the teams they need to beat, wins the most important games, all that kind of good stuff. What is the storyline here for the Eagles schedule, AJ?
I mean, so in the NFC East, that's the one that matters to me. Like, I get that there's
my Cowboys.
Anyways, I mean, listen, I understand for a lot of teams, there's the stretches you look at and this pocket of games, but when it comes to just about any team in the NFC East, I look at how they play the division because that's going to be what's most important for them. Coming out of the division, you might be the only team that can get to the playoffs. This year, I think that leans more true than it has in a while. We got 2 last season. I don't think that happens this year. I think the winner gets in, and I'm sorry, I do think there's multiple because I think both Dallas and the Eagles can get into the playoffs. But you want to lock in that division for the NFC East just to kind of solidify it. So I'm looking how they play Dallas after coming off a 12-5 season last year. We expect them to be pretty close to that again. Look at how they play a brand new Washington Commanders team. And I'm looking how they play or how Brian Dable can play against these Philadelphia Eagles. And if he can make anything happen, he's been a good offensive coordinator. Can he be a good head coach? So I'm interested to see this division play in the NFC least.
Yeah, it's funny because the NFC East or least or whatever has the easiest strength of schedule for the season. So not only does the Dallas Cowboys have an easy schedule, but the Philadelphia is ranked 30th. The Giants are 29th, and the Washington Commanders are tied with the Dallas Cowboys in the easiest strength of schedule. Obviously, based on last year's records, this is always pretty interesting to talk about. I look at this schedule, and I think there's a lot of winnable games for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah. I think, you look at the Lions game, the Commanders in there, Jaguars, Houston, Washington again, the Giants, the Bears, the Giants again, the Titans there. I think there's a lot of winnable games there. Yeah. So but I also think they're the type of team that loses some of those games and then they'll beat a team that they're not supposed to beat. So I'll give you mine first. I'll just jump right into it with our schedule, our season breakdown of their record. I do not have the numbers about what we did earlier this year because I'm not Vinny. However, I have them going 9-8. I told you I thought this team comes in a little bit overrated. I think they do fight for a wild card spot, but I did think they were overrated. I'm not sure if I have them getting in this year. You'll have to wait till next week when we make our final predictions. But I have them going 9-8. I think they struggle defensively still, and I think that's what keeps them from kind of getting over that hurdle to win the NFC East.
So when we did this the first time, I had the Eagles going 9-8 as well. I have since gotten a little higher on the Eagles. And I haven't done this yet, and this may be different, but I feel good about it. I'm going to give them an extra 2 games, and I think they're going to go 11-6. I think they have that capability. The 2 games that I'm looking at that I originally had them losing, I'm going to give them that. I had them losing to the Giants in Week 18 just because I thought they'd be fine and maybe not play anybody, but I'm going to give them that win in Week 18, and I'm also going to give them their win over Washington in Week 10. So I think they get 2 extra games from me, and I'm going to give them that 11-6 record, and we'll leave the rest for next week.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Listen, we don't have the power rankings because Vinny's not here to input them, and I don't know what numbers are slotted and available. I will say that you had them slotted, I believe, at number 11. Mm-hmm. I had them at number 15. So we will address the power rankings on our farewell show, our farewell into the regular season show, when we talk about where we feel like Philadelphia will finish this year. But it's probably somewhere between 10 and 15. If there's spots like still available, obviously we got to look at that. But they'll fall somewhere between 10 and 15 on our preseason power rankings.